Michael Moore was not happy with CNN's coverage of the hurricane. He actually went on Piers Morgan's program to talk about it. Let's watch.
Can you imagine if 110 homes were burning right now in Los Angeles?
Sure.
That it'd be another 3 hours before we heard about it.
But I think you've got to take it in the context of everything else that was going on in New York. I mean,
yeah, but everything else. My point is that everything else that was going on was putting a lot of reporters in 3 feet of water and seeing how far they blow.
Right, but
and that is not news.
Yeah, but hang on. I don't agree with that because actually.
But we already covered that in the last.
Well, let me just finish that because it's an interesting debate. But when a 14-foot surge comes over the water in Lower Manhattan,
all you need is one shot of that. Here it comes. Whoa! That's it.
Maybe,
what more do you?
maybe.
Why do you keep going back to Alivash in Atlantic City, hour after hour after hour after hour after hour, with him being blown around by the wind?
Let me just say, I think he was incredibly courageous to do what he did.
Yes,
it was exceptionally testing. He was there for 12 hours, showing.
Go! It was ridiculous. Now, look, I'm not saying CNN shouldn't do it. It's a fun shot. That's why people tune in. Do they do it for anything other than ratings? Come on. Of course, it's for the ratings. Oh, look at that dude in the middle of the water. And that's why he goes out there. And they talked to Ali Vesci about this. He is a good guy, and he tempered things. But overall, he's like, well, it was important for the audience to know what, right? And in fact, he's telling people while he's in the middle of the water, it's very important that everybody evacuate. Okay, but jackass, you're in the middle of the water, so you're not really sending an evacuation, message out there by being in the water, right? So look, and I don't mean to call him out on it. It's CNN's choice to do that, and he's going to get, more notoriety by doing it, et cetera. I get it, and I don't even like Michael Moore. What he says is true and fine, but I don't really particularly care about that. For me, what would be much better is, okay, go ahead and show the waves and show Ali out there and et cetera, and then talk about why is this happening. Let's look at the macro picture. Let's look at the record heat in July. Let's look at the droughts. Let's look at all the weather together so that we can begin to get a sense of how our climate is changing. See, that would be reporting. That would be journalism. That would give you something value added. Instead, they just do the easy thing, send a guy as far out as you can, and have the audience watch to see if he drowns. Keep it real, okay? So now, to be fair to Ali Vesci, he says it. He says, look, I think the criticisms are well-intentioned and fair, and he said we're going to look into this, and we always reevaluate, et cetera. And as he said something else that was really interesting, that when he went to talk to the guys who had not evacuated, he had feelings about, hey, you should have gone, et cetera. His quote is interesting. But it's also, he's probably the person that is the least qualified to tell everybody else to evacuate, since they're in their homes further away from the water than he is. So it's kind of weird for him to be like, hey, from the middle of the ocean, let me tell you, you should evacuate. Okay, but nonetheless, right? And then he says this, quote, I must tell you, it challenges every journalistic bone in my body not to ask these people, what were you thinking? Why do you somehow think this wasn't going to happen to you despite all of our reporting? Well, as I said, number one, they might have thought everything was okay because your reporting was in the middle of the water and you were fine, right? And then number two, look at how they view journalists. What's wrong with asking someone, hey, why didn't you evacuate? That's journalism. But he believes that it would be the wrong thing to do. He's fighting it. His journalism is fighting asking the most obvious and relevant question. Because why? It would be a biased question? It would be an unbalanced question? Like, it would be a question that wasn't made purely of vanilla? Okay, no, go ahead and ask them. That's what we're all wondering. Why didn't they evacuate? There's nothing wrong with that question. But they're drilled into their heads as CNN. Do not ever ask an interesting question that might challenge anyone you ever have on, okay? Just get out in the middle of the water and get pounded by the waves. That's our idea on ratings. Now, give us context. Ask hard questions, not only of the people you're interviewing, but also of your reporters to figure out why we have these weather patterns instead of just sitting there getting washed out by a storm.